have always been a big fan of theme parks. Ever since I was a kid, visiting Disneyland was the most exciting thing of the year. But what I experienced a couple of months ago, during my last visit, is something I will never forget. It's a story I've told only a few close friends, but I feel I must share it to get it off my chest. It all started out as a normal day, but ended in the most horrible way one could imagine. It was a sunny day and perfect for being in the park. I arrived early, around 9 a.m., with my wife and 2 young children. From the moment we walked through the entrance, the atmosphere of joy and fun enveloped us. The bright colors, the costumed characters, the laughter and music, it all seemed like something out of a dream. We decided to start with Adventureland, as my kids wanted to ride the Indiana Jones roller coaster. The morning went smoothly. We rode several rides and stopped for ice cream and souvenirs. Just before noon, while we were in line for the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, I noticed a man who looked out of place. I couldn't tell exactly what it was, but something about his look unsettled me. He was young, maybe early 20s, with a scraggly beard and a black cap that covered much of his face. He was wearing a dark gray t-shirt and worn jeans. What struck me most was how he looked at the people around him, as if he was sizing them up. I decided to ignore him and continue enjoying the day with my family. After lunch, we headed to Tomorrowland. There, my kids wanted to ride the bumper cars, so we got in line. As we waited, I saw the man in the black cap again. This time, he was closer and I got a better look at him. His eyes were bloodshot and he had an expression of restrained fury. I shuddered, but tried not to think too much about it. Must be someone just having a bad day, I said to myself. Hours passed and we began to feel tired. We decided that one last attraction would be enough before heading back to the hotel. We headed to the Fantasyland area to ride the carousel, one of my kids' favorite rides. As I watched them spin and laugh, I felt a momentary peace. That's when I heard the first scream. I turned my head quickly and saw a woman running, a terrified expression on her face. The crowd began to stir and I could hear more screams. People were running in all directions, some tripping and falling to the ground. My parental instincts kicked in immediately. I grabbed my children and pulled them closer to my wife. "We have to get out of here now," I yelled to her, but the confusion and chaos made it difficult. That's when I saw him. The man in the black cap was standing in the middle of Fantasyland's main plaza, holding a gun. His face was no longer hidden by the cap. He had an expression of pure hatred, a look of someone who had nothing to lose. He started firing randomly, people falling around him as he kept pulling the trigger. Everything became absolute chaos. I tried to protect my family, covering my children with my body and looking for somewhere to hide. The screams were deafening. The smell of gunpowder and blood filled the air. I saw several people fall to the ground, some of them clearly lifeless. I felt indescribable terror, but my only priority was to keep my family safe. We managed to hide behind a souvenir store while the attacker continued his massacre. I could hear the gunshots, each one like a hammer blow to my soul. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the police arrived and confronted the attacker. There was an exchange of gunfire and finally all was silent. We emerged from our hiding place, trembling and teary-eyed. The scene we saw was something I will never be able to erase from my memory. There were bodies everywhere, people crying and hugging their loved ones, and the attacker, dead on the ground. Later, when the police began to investigate, we discovered that the man had been fired from his job at the park a few months earlier. Apparently, he had threatened to return and take revenge, but no one took him seriously. He was a young man with mental problems, someone who had been rejected and ostracized until he couldn't take it anymore. This event changed my life forever. I can no longer go to crowded places without feeling anxiety and fear. My children still have nightmares and my wife and I have had to seek help to overcome the trauma. What should have been a day of fun and joy turned into a living nightmare. I hope that sharing this story serves as a warning and causes us to reflect on the importance of mental health and safety in public places. Translated with deepl.com, free version.